Welcome guys to this Need for Speed world, or shall I say soapbox racing world, kind of tutorial video. A little disclaimer, it's not a full tutorial because of the grey areas surrounding the game. It is still technically a Need for Speed title, which is in terms licensed and operated by EA Games, even though they shut down the servers and stopped all support for the game. There is nothing about the game now. This is almost as if it was like a bad child they tried to forget, but really it's one of the best games they've probably ever produced. But anyway, back to the main point of the video. It's soapbox racing. Be it a company or a group have created a specific client launcher with back-end server. I don't know the ins and outs and how they've got it. But basically what it allows you to do is create an account with them. It's a free-to-play game, and you can log in and play the Need for Speed world as if it was... I think there's a very specific version point that they've got. I don't know the specific version, although they've got all of their details and stuff on their website or via their GitHub being a source code point. So anyway, we're going to skip the real kind of like gritty details of it. This video is pretty much just for those people that are kind of having problems getting the game running. So first of all, in your My Downloads, albeit downloads, this is Windows 10 that you're seeing on the screen. In your downloads folder, you need to create a new folder by right-clicking and give it a title. So I've called mine SBRW for Soapbox Racing World. And within that folder is where you're going to download your release zip. Release zip is the client, and that is the program you're going to use to be able to download the game and download all the required files and obviously log in and connect to the servers. So I would say download that first. So mine may look a bit different. I'm using WinRAR, which also supports zip files. You can use the Windows zip file system or decompression application, however you want to term it. Simply just right click, and you want to select the one that says extract to release, and it's going to put it into a folder, so we're going to do that quickly. Obviously mine's gone pretty quick, it may take you slightly longer, but you should have a folder called release, and that's what the content should look like. It should be quite basic. So before we install any of this, what you do want to do is just create another folder and call it tools, and here is where you want to download some very specific tools. I'll put the links in the description of the video because they are all Microsoft provided, they're free. So I'm just going to very quickly cut to that point, and this folder will now have the 4 tools we require. Here's your 4 tools. So I'm going to quickly just gloss through them. This is VC, which is your C++ 2015-2019 redistributable. This is the 64-bit, and then the one below it, even though it says x86, it's just reference to a 32-bit. Your NDP is Net Framework, that's 4.8. I don't know why they put it as 48, but that's just how they package their stuff. That's a web install, and then this DX is your Direct X Web install as well. We're going to do this in a very specific way, but first of all, you need to know what operating system you've got, specifically whether it's a 32-bit or 64-bit. Plus, you need to make sure it's up to date. So to do that, if we go down into the start bar, a lot of that start bar will be blurred out for you, I'm afraid, because I'm not going to let you see it, but DXDIAG is what you want to type. You should get DirectX Diagnostics is what it stands for, and in theory you should have that. You just click enter, and you should get either a pop-up window saying you haven't run this before, please click yes or no to run it, or you should get this window. Again, I'm going to have to blank out some of the details on here. Just going to have to blank out some details on here just for my own privacy reasons. But you can see on this bit, just by my mouse cursor in the middle, I'll highlight the area. Windows 10 Pro 64-bit, and it's my build model. That tells me that I've got a 64-bit operating system. So I'm going to come out of this. If you've already tried installing the game and you've had problems, i.e. you've had some sort of failure, net framework failure, but fundamentally what we need to do is install the right packages for the game to communicate with the operating system and for the operating system to launch the game effectively, albeit the client. So if you've got a 64-bit, you need to click on that VC redistributable x64-bit. and install that. When you click on that, it is going to be really self-explanatory, kind of like there's only one path that you can take to install it. If you don't take that path, it's going to cancel and not install. So you would need to install the 64-bit. When you get midway, if it gives you the option to install it, it means you don't have it. It may give you an option to repair, which means you already have it installed, but the option to repair is just to repair or replace any corrupt or damaged files. Or it may just tell you, you've already have it installed, we don't need to install it. I would say that most people on Windows 10, 64-bit or 32-bit, especially professional and home, will not have it for some reason. To all the research I've done, I've found that generally the raw Windows 10 does not have this installed unless you've installed it yourself with another package. What you will need to do, and this is an error I found with Windows 10 especially, is it will only install the 64-bit version for 64-bit users, and it will not install the 32-bit or bit x86 package for 64-bit users. Now this seems a bit illogical because a lot of the older applications, and most of the modern applications even now actually, are still running on 32-bit or bit x86. So you will have to install that as well. That will be the second one you want to do, VC redistributable x86. And again, follow it all the way through. There is only one way to do it, or exit out. And when you get to the end of that, that one may actually ask you to do a full system reboot, and that is something you'll have to do. You don't have a choice. If you don't do the reboot and then you try installing the game or try running the game, it just won't see it. So you may get that message. Once you've done a reboot, come back and we're going to go for the third one, which is the NDP48, which is the net framework. So again, when you install this, it may already prompt you. In theory, you should have, if you've done all your operating system updates, you should have this framework 4.8 already installed. But this is a web installer, so basically it will communicate with the Microsoft servers and get the very latest version of the net framework 4.8, and it will install to your system to the most up-to-date version, which is always good to do. It may turn around and say at the end of it, you don't need to install it because you have a current and updated version, which is fine. So just use it as a checker. You can also use it as a repair tool as well. It's a bit more advanced. I'm not going to get into that in this video. If it doesn't ask you for a restart, that's fine. We can then move on to the fourth option. A lot of people said this is unnecessary. I prefer to do it every time I install a game, especially if it's an older game, just purely because every time you install a game or uninstall a game, it will modify or make changes to the DirectX, or it will add files, and it's just something from the old school days where your DirectX would always get a bit messed up, or there'd be a corrupt file, or there would be a corrupt temporary file, and so it's just something I like to do. I like to just always have DirectX Web set up on hand, especially if I've done a fresh new install on the OS anyway, and I'll just run that. So I did the same thing when I was having errors with the game client. It was one of my trial things that I did with the different machines I've got, is I just installed that, did a repair, and things seemed to work. So I would definitely say add it to your list of your 4 tools you want to use before you try installing the client. So in theory, now that you've got all 4 of these done, even if, let's say, your system saw all of them, then we should be able to go back to the release folder, and then we can try running the game launcher.exe. Now from this point, I'm not going to actually put this in the video, but the game launcher.exe is, if you follow the instructions through, again, it's very self-explanatory, point and click, kind of only one way to get through the setup. When you go through the installation process, it will ask you for an installation directory. So you would install it into the folder that you tiled sbrw, and it will put it all into one directory, and your release folder, or be it game launcher.exe, will know where the game is installed. Bearing in mind that because it's a modified client, or be it source code, it may not have digital signatures, and your antivirus may see it as being like a false negative. So you may have to allow your antivirus, or allow the application through your antivirus. I will always firmly stick by the rules that you do not need to allow it through a firewall. I personally run Komodo Internet Security, and I still, as much as that has its own firewall, antivirus and various other security features, I have not actually set any form of firewall access for this client, and it's worked fine. And that's the same with the Windows firewall as well, which is still running in the background alongside Komodo. The actual Windows firewall itself doesn't even have an allowed access port for the game. Normally you get like a little pop-up in the middle of the screen. It will say, do you want to allow this application through your Windows firewall? I just cancelled it. I didn't even allow it a port. So you can run this. So many people say, oh, just turn off your Windows firewall or turn off your antivirus or allow an exception. You don't actually, in theory, need to, and you shouldn't need to, because that is a very risky maneuver to put yourself in, or position to put yourself in. But the people that create the game launcher sometimes do recommend that people do that. So it's at your own risk if you do, but you shouldn't need to. We've now moved on to the step where in theory you've already run the launcher, you've been able to log in with your account, or you've created an account in the means that they show, and this should now be what you've got in your folder, minus this little RAR file down here. That's one of mine. That's a little toolkit I have on standby. But these are all the files it should download for you. If you've been able to get that far and you've been able to download the whole game and you're logged into the client, it should just give you an option to play and you should run the game. And that's pretty much it. It really is a simple process to follow, but unfortunately there's been a lot of issues where Windows 10 especially, be it 32-bit or 64-bit, has come into issues of not having the C++ 2015, 2019. People haven't updated their own operating system, which is something you should always do for the security features. Obviously, if you have chosen to have a pirated copy of the operating system and that's why you can't update your OS, then that fundamentally falls down onto you. I can't help you there. And then also the DirectX side, a lot of people forget that the games are still using DirectX. It used to be something back in the day, or like the XP and Windows 7 and Vista days, that you had to do that yourself, the DirectX. And that's why if you actually look through a lot of the game directories, even for modern games, they still download all of the DirectX and the toolkits and what have you anyway in the background for you to use. Okay, so I hope this video has helped kind of clarify some of the details and things you need to do to run the game. Sorry it's not visually been that much, i.e. running through the setup and installation of the client side, but unfortunately it's the grey area that I can't really delve into too much. Okay guys, I hope that clears up some of the issues that people have been having with the framework and some of the general memory issues. Any further issues or problems, just put it down in the comments below. Obviously see the description for some of the links for the tools. Always download the tools directly from an official Microsoft source. And see you in the game.